Hi, Jeepers. It's Scott here with good friend George. We're having another Chatting with George segment, I guess. Hope you guys like the new intro sound effects. That came, we'll discuss that here in a moment. That's some audio finagling work that was actually rather interesting. But hey, as always, I am Scott, the Slapstick Parts Guy, and I still don't use wrenches and tools correctly, but then again, we all know that already. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to George. Good morning, George. How's life up there in the frozen Yukon wilderness?
Well, actually, the weather in Colorado has gotten much better of late, and so we're looking at close to 80 degrees coming up this weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, and we went snow bashing last weekend, and the ice is still up there, and it wasn't so much snow bashing as ice slipping, but it was fun.
That's the important part, right?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So how have things been going? The last little adventure went off rather well. People seem to enjoy it. Got lots of new downloads and stuff like that. So, man, we're just going to jump right in because I gave him a homework assignment, guys. I told him to, hey, write some things down, and the man did. I'll tell you what, puts me to shame. Absolutely. Very fastidious with his notes, and I'm just over here scratching what was left of my hair going, wow, yeah, you want a job? I can't pay you, but you want a job?
I was actually listening to a different podcast. Other folks might listen to Mike Rowe too.
Oh yes.
And his most recent guest, and don't ask me his name, I already forgot, but he has his own podcast. Mm-hmm. And I guess they started a podcast, and he was like having people working for him on the side for like 6 months, and he's like, I'm not going to promise to pay you, but at some point, hopefully, we'll be able to pay you. You know what I mean? and it was pretty funny because he's like, no pressure or anything, but yeah. he's like, yeah. So like 6 months in, it was the greatest thing because I was able to write people like a $36,000 check for the 6 months of work that they'd already done for free. And it
nice.
Like, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Mike's a good dude.
Hat tip to Mike Rowe because he's got a good podcast.
Oh yeah, he does.
Yep.
Shameless plug there. So things have been going. Right. Words. Things have been going well for you, I guess. Nothing. You haven't broken anything. The panacea of Jeep events. Everything starts the first time. No issues at all. Life is good. Yeah. Rainbows and bunny.
Exactly. Nothing ever breaks down. Everything's great.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But before we get into
hold on.
Notes,
it's April 15th.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. That was the April Fool's stuff. That's right. So. No, first off, I just wanted to say that for the first show that I was in on, I had intended to congratulate you and Kevin on the show and how you run it, and just the normal shameless.
Yeah,
I mean, by kissery.
I gotta take the picture now. How comes here? The Otis Hood Slam might be our new cuss word jingle there, but that's okay.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
No, it's like about the horse, whatever. Oh. But anyway, you guys are always, I know personally on my end of things, Kevin spent an entire show helping me through getting my LS tore down and put back together, basically, with my misfire problem I was chasing all over the place. Right. And that was really helpful. I mean, it was maybe 90% fixed by the time the podcast came out, but it was like, you guys set aside an entire episode just to talk about all the different things that could be wrong and stuff I hadn't thought of, and it was awesome. And so I had intended, I didn't have any control over the matter, but I was strongly cajoling Scott back around Thanksgiving that it would be pretty neat to have a Thanksgiving episode with a lot of different people coming on and saying things along the same lines about how they've valued the show over the years and stuff like that. So hat tip there. Thanks for all you guys have been done.
No, of course. It's actually fun. There are a lot of different shows out there, and as a matter of fact, one of the Trail Team Challenge, which is coming up, they just shared another podcast page and all that, and they're like, the mom kind of reached out to me, and she's like, or no, one of his friends and listeners reached out and they said, hey, just so you know, I said, no, guys, there are a lot of podcasts out with different information. I'm not hurt. By all means, get the information out there, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to help people keep their Jeep running. There are all different types of shows. You have the guys with the V8 1-ton builds. You have the guys with the custom, tube chassis buggies. You got the guys with their flapping Toyotas or flapping Penguin Toyotas. You got all the other ones. And Kevin and I just found a niche little market of keeping older Jeeps running, doing the best we can. And I think that's our niche, is just trying to help people keep what they have running on a budget because they're raising a family or whatever, and then that's our niche, and I'm happy to do it. I just answered an email a couple hours ago. Another person's very similar situation. The young lady that texted me a couple weeks ago. Fuel pump issues, and I said, check that Schrader valve. Are you getting fuel? Nope, we're not getting fuel. Okay, check the relay. Put your finger over it. Click. Oh, it's there. And well, as a matter of fact, to even add something even funnier, this is the funniest part of everything. I sold some of my Hess trucks, and I met the young man at the Target parking lot, and it was the funniest thing. He pulls up in a white Rubicon Gladiator, and I'm like, oh, sweet. Of course, his is all decked out and all this. And we're chatting for a few minutes. He's like, yeah, I got this weird clunk noise, and I've been to like 4 different shops. And I said, what do you mean? So he grabs a steering wheel, clunk, clunk, clunk. I'm like, all right, hold on. Okay, it's not your steering box because it's a black steel one, not the aluminum silver one. I said, hold on. So I walked down to the passenger side of the track bar, put my hand on, turn the wheel, clunk, clunk. Same lift I had on the LJ before I went to the other new lift is the same, rhymes with ground jacker. And gee, guess what? The bushings and Johnny joints went out on the track bar. And I said, come here. And I said, put your hand here. And he did. And I went, kung, kung. He's like, oh, holy cow, that thing's moving big time. And I said, get your phone out. And he took a video of it, clunk, clunk, so he can show his mechanic. And he's like, I don't believe it. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I've been to 3 shops. I've spent the past month. I can't go over 40 miles an hour. And in 3 minutes, the guy I'm buying Hess trucks from diagnosed my Jeep. That's what I do. I wouldn't know the things I do unless hanging out with Kevin, hanging out with the shops and getting there and helping, get my hands dirty. Lucky guess. I'd like to say, pat myself on the back, but it was a lucky guess.
It is weird to me when that happens, because this happened to me too. Same exact story, pretty much.
Yeah.
And you just look at it for a minute and go, oh, well, there's your problem right there. And people are like, oh, you're amazing. And it's like, I don't understand, honestly, how paid mechanics don't see some of the stuff where it just seems so obvious. It's just weird.
A lot of it comes down to training. And we actually had a situation this past weekend where the couple lube techs were working on a Sunday when they weren't supposed to, and they tried to order DoorDash for their lunch, but unfortunately mistyped and got door crashed, and drove one of the vehicles of their friend's vehicle they shouldn't have been working on through the shop door. So instead of a DoorDash, it was a door crash. So a lot of it comes down to training. Like they didn't set parking brakes. They didn't do the steps they needed, and unfortunately, it cost the young man his job. But at the end of the day, though, it's again taking that training. I mean, I'm sure in your business you've had people you're just like, no, I have to stop them before they hurt themselves. And every now and then, sometimes you got to step back and let them hurt themselves a little bit so they can learn too. It all depends on the type of person you have,
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
it's funny because I got a very similar story to that. When I was 16, working at Wendy's, a guy standing at the front counter. It's a real slow day, just a Sunday afternoon, and he's just watching the cars go by. Mm-hmm. He sees this one car pulling the drive to come into the restaurant, and you know how I think they've done away with most of them now, but all the Wendy's for the longest time had the sign that was about 1 foot square that says drive-through open, right? And I'll be dipped if this little car didn't drive right through the window underneath the drive-through window open sign. And as it turns out, she's 15 years old wearing flip-flops, and her foot got stuck under the gas pedal.
Yeah. You see that a lot down here in the Sunshine State because, again, we have to constantly remind people like hurricane season. And I wish I was making this up. There is a Weather Chaser page that reminded everyone we're at the start of hurricane season. So remember, people, teeth and bras. When you speak to the news, make sure you put your teeth in or you're wearing your bra, because, and don't go barefoot because guys are barefoot. They're, the elderly people don't have their teeth in, and some people, it's sad that you have to remind people to have basic, whatever you want to call it down here in Florida. Because again, sometimes I do shake my head because I live in Florida going, oh man. One of the guys actually made a comment. I think it was Patrick. Patrick made a comment today. He goes, hey, I don't see you on Spotify. I had to fix a little issue we had. So if you usually listen to us on Spotify, I fixed it. But he goes, you're a couple of days late. Sometimes I get worried if you got eaten by an alligator. Yeah, well, I live in Florida, so I could see how that could happen. So,
Yeah.
but no, again, it's.
I don't know how a state gets a reputation. I mean, it's always the Florida man, you know, it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah. Moving on. Welcome to our Jeep show.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I do have to say something really quickly, though. I do have an announcement to make. I can now officially publicly state it. Autumn's GPW will be in Heritage Row at Jeep Beach. There is, as you walk into the event now, Autumn's Jeep will be featured along with vintage, basically the heritage, the entire history and heritage of the Jeep, and hers will be one of those in there. So come on, check us out. As you walk through, you'll see her. She's flying her banners. This is all her. This is her deal. We have a few stickers lined up, so just come on down and say hi to us. We'll be there at the Speedway on Friday and Saturday, so come by and see us. So that was my shameless plug. How about you, George? You got any shameless plugs?
Well, not offhand, but now you realize that the pressure is on, that you have to keep that vehicle running all the way until the event. And it has to make it to the event. So it could be all on her, but it's not. There's a large portion of that's on you.
Well, the good news is I paid for trailer parking, so it just has to get from the parking up the ramp and into the Speedway, and it'll handle that. That's fine. What scares me, though, is on Thursday they have a photo shoot at Ponce Inlet. And unfortunately, it is a situation where it's like an undisclosed location, but there are no trailer parking. So now I don't know what I'm going to do. I might have to drop the Jeep off and just circle the mall somewhere until she's done getting photos done, and then come pick her back up. We can drive a little bit on the street, but it's still restricted use only. There's no turn signals. There's no stoplights. It's a military vehicle, you know. It's like, but anyways.
Well, and that's actually a good segue into the first actual Jeep story.
Right.
As far as mall crawling goes, you know, mall crawlers, they get a bad reputation.
Mm-hmm.
You never take the thing on the trail, whatever. Well, so this story is in defense of all those mall crawlers. Actually had a drive shaft break at the mall. And so.
All right. How'd you do that, man?
So it was on a TJ, and my friend Sean, who I've wheeled with countless times, hundreds of miles on trail, he'll go everywhere. He's my solid backup that if I will go, he will follow, right?
Gotcha.
And so we decided it would be a good idea in our electrical work that we had this roll of big heavy cable. And we're like, okay, well, we're only going to have two guys, you know, so dragging this big, huge 2.4 SO cord 500 feet and doing all this stuff with it. It'd be way easier if we just tie it to the Jeeps and then drive it up the hill. And then you'll hook on the other Jeep and drive it the rest of the way down the hill. And then we'll do this stuff and we'll just use the Jeeps and it'll be easy. And it's like, yeah, it's a great plan. We got this, you know. So we pull the trailer up, we get all hooked up, and he's driving across basically in the mall parking lot. He gets off into the grass and there's these culverts that come down into a big drainage culvert.
Okay.
And we're going to drive over that to pull the wire. Well, he drops down and the front axle goes through just fine. But then when the back axle hits, it lands perfectly square in this god-awful foot-deep burnout box.
Oh, no.
And he starts doing a burnout in the bottom of this thing, trying to pull himself out in 4-low. I've never seen the cross on a U-joint snap twice.
Oh.
It broke off both ears and it snapped the ear off the drive shaft and lost a bolt in the yoke in the rear differential.
Ow.
At the mall.
That's 1 in a million. That's a story right there.
We aim to please.
So it can happen. You can get trail carnage at the mall.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So we got the drive shaft undone and drove it down. There's a really good drive shaft place in Greeley,
right.
And they got him fixed up in a day or two. It was great.
Nice.
So he limped home on front wheel drive.
Yes, I have had many friends, Ron Davis included, from Red Scorpion, to the same thing. At Jeep Beach, he tried to do a burnout, kabam, and so he spent the last 5 days of Jeep Beach in front wheel drive, and then drove the 120 miles home in front wheel drive.
What's the thing? My LJ actually, for some reason, it's better in just front wheel drive. When I lost the rear drive shaft the time or two ago, before I did the slip yoke eliminator kit,
right,
it was smooth as glass in front wheel, and as soon as I put the rear drive shaft back in, I was like, oh, okay, well, I still got that little vibration,
Now you know where it's coming from.
Yeah, right.
Nah, I actually took the LJ out for a spin. Again, I do a week on, week off. Week on, week off with the LJ and the Gladiator. I go back and forth, which is fun because I buy 2 tanks of gas in a month. Because I use the first half of the Gladiator the first week, the second week, third, so it's time to buy gas again, of course. But and again, it's just I'm not gonna lie. I had a little crisis of faith the past couple of weeks. I thought about selling the LJ, really did. And, because again, the market values are still, I made a passing comment on the LJ page saying, I guess one guy was asking, 17 for his super clean, just over 100,000 miles. Not a Rubicon though. Or no, it was Rubicon, but it wasn't a 6 stick shift. And everyone's like, price too low. And he's like, well, I need it to sell. And I said, man, this has me hankered to sell my 6-speed. And they're like, how much? And all of a sudden, my inbox came. Is it a 6-speed? Is it flame red? You got the hard? I go, yeah, I got hard and soft top. Oh, 22. I got the trailer right now. Oh, don't say that, man. Again, we all know this. We've all been here where you sell that project vehicle, you're never going to get it back, and you're going to have to pay more to get it back, or that you run the risk of getting one that you don't know the gremlins, you don't know the demons. This thing is rust-free, runs, AC works, 170 on the clock, Mastercraft seats, the whole 9 yards, and it's clean. It's mildly, again, I haven't done anything major to it yet, but it's like, do I go ahead and make that leap, or do I just leave it alone and just let it sit? Because it's just appreciating. And when everyone asks, how did I get such a good deal? And I said, well, I met the young man at the financial institution, the bank, we'll just call it. I forgot what it was called. Credit union. I met the young man at the credit union with his girlfriend and his pregnant wife. Sorry, I met him at the credit union with his wife and pregnant girlfriend. And she wanted to hurt him like he hurt her. And he said, there's a small conversation where she goes, how much are you asking for it again? Because it was on her credit. She was the major sign. She was the first on the loan. He was a secondary. And he goes, well, I'm selling it for this much. And she looks at me and she goes, is this the Jeep you've wanted? And I said, yeah, well, I've been searching for the past year and a half. She goes, huh? She looks right at the bank guy and she goes, I'm the primary, right? And she's like, the guy's like, yeah, you're a primary. What you say goes. Good. Just pay off the loan. He was 5 years into a 6-year loan.
Oh my.
I looked one look at the dude and said, I'm so sorry, dude. Wrote that check, handed it to the guy, got the keys, and I heard his heart shatter into a million pieces. And she realized mission accomplished, and I literally stole that LJ.
Oh, man.
1 year left on his loan, and knowing the market value price. Yeah, moving on.
You know what the headline of that story is, right?
Keep it in your pants?
No. Oh. Florida man sells Jeep.
Or Florida man buys Jeep, one of the two. So even my friend who he has one of the cleanest LJs in Southeast, Johnny, he took one look at me and said, you did what? And he is the only one to know the dollar amount I spent on that. And he was like, holy cats.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. To get a Rubicon
Touché.
LJ.
That's the best deal I've ever
6 speed.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I walked in with 5 times that price. Or sorry, 3 times that price. 3 times that price is what he was asking. So I got a hefty discount.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I heard his heart break too.
No, my heart broke for him, but it didn't break that much because I had money to go put in the AC and then money to go buy a hardtop, money to go buy this.
Oh man, no kidding.
Money for Mastercraft seats. Moving on.
It's like I sold Bonnie and I got past Christmas.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Okay.
No, it was a happy day in my household. Moving on. So you can break a vehicle on the mall. That's kind of funny.
In defense of the mall crawlers, and then moving on. Let's see. After that, I went to the car wash, and it's that time of year, and it's about time to get the Jeeps out. The other ones are vehicles that have been getting dirty.
Yeah.
And so I take Clyde to the car wash, which is the 56 CJ3B, and did my thing, sprayed it out, got the seats wet, hopped back in, went driving home, looked down, and I see the gauge is reading like 230 or something. It smells hot.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's great. And so I pull in and I shut her down and I look at it and there's this steam coming out of the water pump. And I'm like, oh, okay, I must have blown a water pump. Okay. No further investigation. I start looking for a water pump. But the bright side of the story is I made contact with a really nice guy down in Erie about an hour, 45 minutes away.
Right.
And he's like real big into the flat fender. He's like the president of the International Flat Fender Club or something like that.
Right.
But super nice guy. He's got videos on YouTube I've learned from and stuff like that. So it was really a great opportunity to meet him and make contact with him. It was great.
Very cool.
And so I picked up a bunch of useless parts to me because it turns out he's in the Flat Fender Club, which means he's got original Dana 18 stuff and my transfer case stuff was too new. So Clyde's 56 actually has this 1960 transfer case in it. So none of the gears that I need that he actually had. So I've got a whole bunch. If anybody wants to, get in touch, I got a whole bunch of very reasonably priced, like 1947 Dana 18 gears, intermediate and output. But here nor there. So I meet with him. I pick up a couple of used water pumps and those gears. Come back and the wind was blowing, but then it kind of subsided on Sunday. I get in and replace the water pump in record time, get it all sealed up and ready to go. Fired up, it does the exact same thing. Just starts dumping coolant like crazy. And of course, being conscientious, I put coolant in, not water, testing. I just thought I fixed it, right? So there's $20 worth of coolant going everywhere. And I'm going, what? And then it hits me. Did you think to check the thermostat, stupid? Did you think to check the radiator cap? The $14 and 20 minutes to O'Reilly's versus the 2-hour expedition to go grab used parts and all this other stuff.
Right.
So that was fun.
So the whole time it was your thermostat.
Yeah.
Gotta love it, right?
Yeah, it's great.
But you got a couple water pumps, so be thankful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the one I pulled out is probably in pretty decent shape. It seemed to be.
Yeah, just a little cooked.
So, yeah. So.
Yeah, I know that's the fun part. Quick question. Do you have the little fuel pump and the glass bulb on yours on the side of the engine?
Sure do.
Okay. I didn't know if that was like a specific thing. So that's kind of fun to watch a little fuel go bloop, bloop, bloop into it. It's like, yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and since Clyde sits for long periods of time, and I've dealt extensively with vapor locking with Dudley, the Franken Jeep from years gone by, I kind of took the bull by the horns and did a little cheating with Clyde and put in an electric fuel pump down right under the gas tank. And so if it's been sitting for 2 months or something, I don't expect to have any fuel in the system. When I turn the key, I flip the switch, pump the system up. But then I turn the switch back off and it runs on mechanical pretty much the whole time. If I think I'm fighting vapor lock, then I'll flip the switch and turn the electric pump back on to get some pressure behind it so it doesn't vapor lock. But it's actually really convenient on the under the we dial like Ben gas tank that's under the driver's seat.
Yeah.
It's got 2 ports on it, and one of them's for draining the tank and one of them's for using. Well, I just use that draining the tank one as my return on a regulating bypass regulator.
Cool.
So yeah, so it keeps it down to 2 pounds. I can just buy the 6-pound pump from O'Reilly's if it goes bad, and it's easy.
The show is not sponsored by O'Reilly's, although they have been my go-to place lately.
Or Checker or whatever you got, Advance Auto.
Yeah. No, it's actually kind of funny because I have an O'Reilly's right down the street. Worked for them for a couple of days, actually. Cool place. And again, it harkens back to that proper, parts store look to me. It's like some of the new parts stores, like walking to a hospital. I'm like, no, man. I grew up with the catalogs on the counter. Things were dirty because the men didn't mop the floors or sweep them. If they're lucky, they had the 16-year-old kid that was just starting out. He'd mop them, but then he'd start being a parts driver somewhere, so they lost their floor sweeper. But again, it's supposed to be a little bit grungy, and it's supposed to smell like gear oil and stale cigarettes and alcoholism. It's supposed to smell like that because it's a parts store, But good old Roger Rivers.
Failed lives and ruined vehicles and all that. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, moving on. Yeah, good. 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Moving on. So yeah, no, I remember when we started selling chocolate bars and candy at the Advanced I was working at, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, and they're like, "Yeah." Then the health department came in, and we all got dinged because we didn't have a water heater. So apparently, if you sell any kind of convenience like food items or anything like that, you have to have a water heater so you have hot water to wash your hands. And as the health inspector saying this, I'm staring at my other guy that's literally covered in grease from turning rotors because, no one wipes the inside of the grease on the rotors out. And I'm looking at that poor guy's hands as he's eating a sandwich. It's like, okay. Called corporate. We'll get a water heater installed.
No kidding.
I never wanted to sell candy bars at a parts store anyways. That's my own eye twitching. I'm sorry. I'm having my pop-up moment. You kids and your fancy 8-track tapes, But your Insta Spotify's and your Googles. So why did I say Spotify? That didn't sound right. Moving on. Great. Now, now we're not on Spotify anymore. All right. So.
Yep. I think you just lost that one.
I think I'm going to edit that out.
I think O'Reilly's ain't going to want you as a sponsor anymore.
Yeah, they're fine. I know Jeff down at the store. He's good. He's good people. Oh man, this is spiraling a little bit, but in a good way.
Oh
though.
Yeah, a little bit. So moving on to mechanical stuff again. Let's see. So I had that little adventure with Clyde, and then Otis was the 51 GMC pickup. It always had a hard time starting, and so didn't think much of it. We'll work through problems and whatever. It has a stigma of being 6 volts. And so in the back of your mind, the whole time when you're fighting these kind of issues, you're thinking, I just need to upgrade to 12 volts and it'll make life better. So this whole time, this is weighing on me. But then in the last time I drove it for like a block, I fired it up, warmed it up for like 5 minutes. I'm visiting with people on the sidewalk about the truck and everything. I drive it back to the house, it shuts off, it never starts again. And I do the normal 15 to 20 pumps, crank it, nothing. It's like, what's going on here? I hear one cylinder firing. Right. And I was like, oh, what's going on? So I'm like, okay, well, I used suppression style plug wires, the newer style, on a points and condenser system, which is bad news. Need to use solid plug wires. But when I was trying to get Otis running in a hurry, I didn't do that. I just went down to the local parts store, take your pick, and got just the suppression style. So like, oh, you know what? I probably killed the points and condenser. You know what? While I'm messing around, I'm just going to get a Pertronix ignition system, just electronic ignition. Get that tied in. You can get it for even 6 volt positive ground. And so I popped that in, pump it, hit the key, nothing. Same exact thing. It's sitting there firing on maybe one cylinder. I'm like, what is going on? Right. Check spark plugs. Check it with the tester. It's making spark on 1 and 2, and then I stop looking because it's making spark. And I'm like, well, maybe it's not got fuel. And I look at it now, with the setup I got, it's pouring fuel all over the intake. I know it's got fuel in the carburetor, So I was like, it must be compression, I don't know. Right. It seems to run fine, but whatever. Turns out I set in, there's a good video. I don't remember the guy's name. I'd have to look for the same problem I did. But he's like, okay, you can set your valve lash on the engine with 2 steps. You turn it to top dead center on 1, turn it to top dead center on 6, set your valve lash on select valves at that moment. Yeah. Do all of 1, do all of 6, and then you're set. And sure enough, I set the valve lash on Otis, and it fires with, I guess you'll be hearing it on the intro or whatever, but it's just like that. I was like a no start condition for valve lash. But it was running. It was so weird. But
see, I don't know. You just learned me something. I didn't know about the suppression wires and the points and condenser system. Like that's actually, I just learned that. Because again, I grew up, in the cutting my teeth in the parts business in the mid 90s, and so there was very few points and condensers out there, but we still sold some to a lot of the hot rodder guys. So I understand how the system works. But I never knew about that. So the suppression wires just kill the spark, basically, or just
Well, it's not fully conductive. And so
Okay.
with a solid core wire, you're pushing through a copper wire. It's your basic electrical theory that you can visualize, right?
Right.
But with suppression, it's pushing through a semiconductor or some kind. I'm not an expert.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry in advance, guys, but
Yeah.
but basically that's the idea. And I was thinking, oh, okay, so that was my problem is that crank, I'm already drawing my voltage down because I'm cranking with the starter, right? And so that reduced voltage is going down and
Spark.
and so as a result, the coil is getting less voltage, and so
Okay.
therefore it's not able to push it through that suppression style spark plug wire is what my original theory was.
Gotcha.
But that wasn't it, but that's true. You if you've got suppression style on Autumn's GPW without an electronic ignition, you probably want to look at that because that'll not do well in the long run.
Well, I again, I got the book of receipts. I'm going through there anyways to find out what year this engine is. But yeah, that's another thing I found out too. George and I were talking before we started recording. Is I found out that Autumn's GPW, which again we kind of knew this was a mutt, and some things were put together. It's got a post-war engine, so. And that's kind of interesting. I've been ordering all these parts for a 42 GPW, and now all of a sudden that might be why I had problems with the oil filter because it didn't fit.
Yeah.
So, but again, now I had good oil pressure for the first 5 minutes it was running, and then once the oil got hot, I lost oil pressure. So yeah, moving on. So yeah, that's I've conversations with George in the past. I think Autumn's gonna have a foray. Anyways, we're gonna video an engine rebuild because I have an actual machine shop across the street from my work. And so I'm going to let them do the machining on the block and all the stuff that needs to be done. I'll let them do the cam bearings. I am not doing cam bearings in a flathead engine. Nope. That's witchcraft and a skill I don't have. So I'm okay with that going. I'm okay spending a little bit of money on that. But now I got to find out what year of engine kit to buy.
Yeah, that's tough. And in the past, I've done a little bit of dabbling with that and always trying to skirt an issue. I don't want to do a full rebuild. So I buy a lot of tools and then start measuring things and figure out where I'm at. And then, okay, let's see if the proper bearings that aren't worn will fix all my oil pressure issues. And they never have.
Yeah.
It's always needed a rebuild. So.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to probably bite the bullet, get it through Jeep Beach. And then, after that, the following event that we would like to go to is Crawling for the Fallen. So I think we're going to go ahead and just, get through Jeep Beach, and then we're going to bring it home. And then, I may talk to a guy that may have some gears for a T18. I may have to talk to that guy a little bit because I have a transmission sitting inside, and I'm looking for a secondary other bits. So because when I did the transfer case, as Autumn drained the oil out, when we first got it, the oil was silver for a second. So I know we got issues. Again, the person that had this before, it was a cool Army Jeep. Let me take it out into the woods and beat it up a little bit and go to events, and maintenance was what? So, yeah, there's a multitude of sins that were done. This thing's been, it was restored again 20 plus years ago. So it's time. And it's good. It's a great project. As far as other things go, Autumn said, she wanted to get into this habit of something unique and did not spend $1 million. Well, the parts are relatively cheap. So that's okay. You're going to get your hands dirty, and she's okay with it. So that's all going to be fun of it. But, so what any projects you got on the docket or the things you'd like to do?
Well, I'd like to drive them more than I'm working on them at the moment. But the LJ's running good. I think it seems like I need to start writing things down because it's like I know, for instance, that the vent tube coming off the rear differential is broken half, and I should have fixed it like 3 or 5 rememberings ago, but I just keep forgetting.
Gotcha.
I need to drop the tank and file on the anti-tipping valve that's on the filler neck.
Right.
It sticks, and so if I go to my favorite gas station that has brand new pumps, it's click, 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 and you can never actually get any gas out of it. So you got to go to the places that are run down and about to get burned down.
The one the EPA guys are standing out there going, "Do not buy from this place."
I feel bad. There's a gas station that we did some work at where somebody had come in and spent a lot of money to invest in ground monitoring equipment to make sure that the fuel tank leaks had been fixed and all this stuff. It's like I must have spent like 10 grand or something putting these monitors in and stuff. And about a year later, that gas station got bulldozed, and they're probably going to put in a new one. I don't know.
Well, here's my attitude. See, I'm helping the environment by buying gas from that place because it won't. I'm pouring it in here and burning it before it gets a chance to leak out. See,
exactly.
We're thinking green over here.
Exactly. Perfect.
The fun reindeer games you have with the EPA. Moving on from that subject. So speaking of games, I heard you about some Utah games or something like that.
Yeah. People that spend way too much time on YouTube would probably know about Matt's Off-Road Recovery.
Mm-hmm.
He hosts the off-road games now for the second year in Hurricane, Utah. And so we went last year, and it was awesome. And the weather was awesome too last year.
Right.
And so we go again this year, and maybe not so much on the weather, but well, that's sand. When it's coming at you at 50 miles an hour, it's like,
it hurts.
This is real. Yeah, this is not so much fun, but it was a good time. The LJ decided to wait until we were about an hour out of Hurricane before it broke down. So that was good. With the kids, it was about an 11 or 12-hour trip. And so it was just perfect timing, actually, because when the belt decided to wrap itself around the fan and I'm boogieing down the interstate, the first sign was the antifreeze shooting all over the windshield. And I looked down and realized, oh, I got a problem. So I shut the key off. And I coasted like 3/4 of a mile. And there's a rest area right where I needed it, and pulled in and parked just as though I had power and everything. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
But
fake it till you make it.
Exactly, yeah. So if you go onto my YouTube, which I think you could throw a link in the show notes or something, but
absolutely,
I go over putting a second alternator in the LJ for welding,
mm-hmm.
and most folks, they take the primary alternator and they modify it so you can either weld or charge the battery and whatever. I couldn't make that work, so I did it with two. Well, I used a very thin piece of metal to try to bond my two alternators together as a bracket to function.
I see where this is going.
I recently broke a bolt, the factory bolt that was holding the upper side of the alternator on.
Right. So
I had replaced that with a grade 8 bolt. And turns out with enough flexing, you can break a grade 8 bolt on the interstate. It's really awesome. So the alternator and everything started waving in the wind, and that's when the serpentine belt left the chat. And so we towed it to the hotel. But on the bright side, I had held on to the factory serpentine belt, and obviously I still had the factory alternator as being primary in the vehicle. And so all I had to do was remove all the stuff I installed, the second alternator and all that, zip tie it up so it's not getting stuck in things, and slapped it down, and it ran on one bolt for the entire trip. And another bonus about this is I'm one of few people who can honestly say that I have worked at Matt's Off-Road Recovery.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was volunteering, and I kind of, people come in and out. And Hefe comes pulling in to check on the lady that was overseeing us.
Right.
And they're visiting for a little bit. And then they get done visiting. I kind of sidle over to him. I was like, now, I know the default answer is no. I understand this. So don't feel bad about saying no. It's perfectly fine. But it would be really fantastic if perhaps I could come down to your shop, and I broke down last night, and it's running on one bolt, and I'd feel better driving back to Colorado on 2 bolts on my alternator. Do you think you could help me out? He's like, oh, yeah, sure. Swing on by. It was really cool.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we swing by after the shift, and they let me in, and it was really kind of funny, the expression on Caitlin's face. I'm over here just I'm nervous as all get out. I can't think. Right?
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, thanks for the welder. And I'm just like, and I don't belong here. I'm going to get, shot or something. I don't know. But super nice folks, but it's just.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just, you're on sacred ground, so to speak,
Right.
And so Caitlin walks over, and she looks at it like in wild-eyed wonder, like, where did this come from? And I just kind of look at her, I was like, my house? And she just kind of looked at me funny, and I'm like, oh, I'm just working on my personal thing. Hefe let me use the welder. Oh, this look of relief, because my my LJ is the right color to be at Matt's Recovery.
She thought someone went shopping and bought another Jeep.
Yeah, it's just like, is this something else we're gonna have to fix in the next day to use it in games for something or what?
Nice.
So the look of relief was priceless, and I'm just like, no, it's good. I'm just doing my thing. So so for at least half an hour, I worked at, and I failed miserably, but I worked at Matt's Off-Road Recovery.
Did you get home with 2 bolts in your LJ?
I got back with 1.
With 1? Oh, so the second bolt didn't work?
I could not get that thing out. And man. I got back to the comfort of my tent where I belong, No joke. I don't have a garage, it's a tent. But I got the bracket off the side of the block, chucked it up in a vise, tried reverse drill bits that didn't work, and eventually just worked my way all the way through. And I'm thinking that with the vibration that may occur, I now have a bolt and a nut. So maybe they'll wiggle a little bit instead of holding really tight and snapping off. That's my hope.
It's a fool's hope, but hey, the world's built on it.
But yeah, other than that, on our JK, we found out the hard way that my winch on the JK doesn't work.
Oh no!
So
please, not during a recovery session.
Well, kind of.
Of course, okay.
I come up to this cliff that's about as tall as I am, and I drive the LJ right up it. Wow! All right, that felt cool. And then I turn the corner, and I'm like, I'm not going up that misshapen mashed potato thing. I got to be down at the volunteer tent in an hour.
Right.
And if I try to go up that, I might go over backwards. I'm like, okay, this is fun, but let's not get stupid.
Yeah.
So I go to turn around, and I get her turned around, and I come down this thing, and I got a pretty good video of that. It was one of those, I panicked and went ahead and gunned it because I wasn't sure if I was going to go over Fanny first. and so.
Tush over tea kettle?
Exactly. So I'm trying to pull up and out of this arroyo that we're in. And I just in the sand, I'm burning out. I just can't get out of it. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll just hook on the winch, pull myself back, and we'll find a different way out. Hook on the winch and nothing. And I'm like, well, great. Now we've got about 30 feet of cable paid out, and it's not going back in the hole. That's wonderful.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So you had the instead of the walk of shame, the winch of shame, the crisscross applesauce.
Well, first it's like, okay, well, put it in engaged and back up, okay, bonk, and there I'm out. Okay, that's great. So wadded back up. When we get back down to the pavement, then I figured out it if you disable the switch, you can kind of short it out with a pair of needle nose pliers, and it'll roll itself back up, but with no authority. It's like it had enough to roll itself up. It's like, hey, it's a win.
Nice. Yeah,
I tell you, the wind and the sand and the cold, and if you're inside the vehicle, it ain't bad.
Right.
But oh boy, out in the wind, man, that was rough.
Yeah, we're supposed to get some rain here. It's Wednesday, it's Wednesday, and it's tomorrow we have another cold front coming through, and they're talking about again everyone's 4 foot like a mini storm surge, and it must be a slow news day again because everyone's like, oh, you're gonna have the rain, the lightning, the hail, the cows flying across the sky. It's oh man, we just got through the night of the comet. That's an obscure 80s movie, and if anybody's ever seen it, I didn't even get the name right. Night of the Comet, right? Or Comet. It's an obscure 80s movie where everyone is watching this comet. The Earth goes through the tail of the comet, and everyone gets turned to dust. And then basically other people who, if you don't get turned to dust, you become a mummy. And this is like an 85. And so everyone was talking about the eclipse thing. It's going to turn you into a zombie. And so I started thinking about this movie. Now everyone's referencing the movie, and I forgot where I was going with that. Anyways, moving on. Squirrel. So wenching or something.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We figured that out when the podcast came on. So that's it.
Yeah. Between you and Patrick now. No. I got nothing, guys. I'm sorry. The tank's empty.
But if anybody's of a mind to volunteer at the Matt's Off-Road games, I strongly recommend it. You get a little bit inside baseball. I mean, inside the loop and helping out, and it's genuinely helpful, and it's so much fun. That was actually genuinely the most fun part of it was volunteering, meeting people. We did the registration side, so other jobs might be more fun or less fun. I don't know. I know last year I played traffic cop at the tunnel at Sand Hollow for about an hour and a half because people were walking by like, hey, this guy needs a break. Can you help him out? You got a shirt on. It's like, sure, I'll help him out. You know, so I go over and I cover this. Wow, that was like the darkest side of humanity because you're trying to tell people don't go through the tunnel. You know, you need to go park over there, and then it was an interesting psychological experiment because I had no idea why they couldn't drive through the tunnel. I just know I was ordered not to let people drive through the tunnel. Right.
Right.
So they come up to first question a reasonable person asks is why? I'm like, because I said so. Well, you're not my dad, so I'm going to go on through. No. You need to park over there. And it was the most grueling hour and a half job. And I was like, I'm so glad I signed up for registration and not traffic control. Holy mackerel, dude. Razors, no offense to anybody driving Razors, but you get this sense of authority. Like you can drive anywhere because you can, man. I mean, you can go anywhere 50 miles an hour, fly over jumps and stuff, and it's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you come up against a traffic cop and it's like, you're not going to stop me. You know,
you're just a speed bump, plebeian, slump.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and also we took a side trip and swung out to Fab Rats headquarters in Glendale and bought a sweatshirt or something. Gotcha. We got to visit Grandma Lolly for like half an hour, and that was awesome. She is so cool. I mean, she reminded me exactly of my Aunt Dixie. It was weird. I'm sorry, my Aunt Judy, not my Aunt Dixie. They're different people, but
fair enough.
It was, but it was just awesome. It was like we were at home and visiting, and it was just neat.
That's
so
cool,
it was a really fun trip.
That's really cool. Yes, that's the thing I like about doing is I'm actually volunteering for the Florida Trail Team Challenge with Mark at the Jeep Lab. I have too many names in my head. It's like one of those ball pit things. You spin around and get the numbers for bingo. That's what it was. But no, it's actually kind of fun because when you do that volunteering, it is kind of cool. You get to see how operations and things work. I've never been the traffic cop, never had someone say why, so you got a leg up on me on that. But the funny thing is again, just helping people with the obstacle course, and some people there, again, you see humanity in all different forms. You get the guy go, I can do this, and he goes through and he gets stuck, and then you laugh, and then the next way, the wife or girlfriend's driving the same Jeep, and he's passenger princess, all upset about life, and she listens to me and crawls over it and doesn't get stuck, and I can hear her go, ha! Back to the guy, and he's all mad, mugging out the window now. But and then you get the people who are shaking, they're so scared. I'm like, you got this, and they hit the crunch the first time. They like freak out and panic, and you go, it's really, you okay? You got your all limbs? Can you do this with your fingers? Like, yeah, see, you're alive. Nothing's coming out of the bottom of the Jeep. You're good. Now drive. And they go through and they get crunch, putting a mark on the skid pan. And, they get done and I'm like, see, you're good. Nothing's coming out of the Jeep. You're fine. They're like, I did it. So by the third time they're coming through the same obstacle, they're about like the first guy was, just throttle down and get through it, But again, it's all types of humanity. It's helping people, do that kind of stuff. But again, I've never been the traffic cop, and that kind of scares me because I actually had a guy roll in one time. The control arm was dangling on the bottom of his TJ. He lost the bolt. And he had just got done, doing a rock wall or something, and he's like, I think I got a weird wobble. I'm like, okay, don't move. Just park it over there gingerly, please. Why? Just park it over there. He gets out, gets the door, goes, whoa, that's not good. I'm gonna go look for my bolt. Good luck.
Speaking of finding parts, that reminded me of, you're on the dunes. You're not supposed to, but occasionally people will allow their children to drive, that are underage. And my sons really enjoy getting air. And
oh no,
my middle son did a really good job. He did great. He got a little bit of air once, but not bad. My oldest, Thane, when you say wide open throttle, he knows exactly what you mean. He goes up this dune, and it's got a pretty good little lip at the edge of it. He hits that thing. He's airborne. I got a picture of like 6 feet of no tracks as he's going up it, whoop, and over that. And
oh no.
The first thing I notice is, hey, I find some random part off the winch laying on the ground. I'm like, oh, look at that. Hey, buddy, you might want to settle down just a little bit. Then I grab it and throw it the Jeep, and then I'm like, oh, you lost the roller off the fairly whatever. The rollers on the winch, and I was like, I see you lost that. Yeah, grump at him a little bit. It's the weirdest thing because the wind kept blowing, and then it exposed. It must have fallen into the sand and disappeared. But then the wind blew enough that it exposed it again. So we're driving around like, hey, look, there it is. So I stop and I grab it, throw it. So we didn't lose any parts, really.
Gee, I wonder why the JK winch didn't work.
Yeah, well, I forget which came first, but you got a point.
Real quickly though, so it's very interesting because I know it's a side hobby of yours, and I actually, speaking of which, I did find my license. I finally found it, so it expires in October, so I have to make sure I retake the test. But no,
you don't have to retake a test. You just pay them.
Oh, really?
As far as I know, you just pay them.
Oh, I'll Google it later. But no, that's kind of cool then, because again, I did find it. I'm all happy about that. But you mentioned something about ham radio and this kind of stuff. Are Baofeng still a thing? I mean, that's how long it's been since I've been in the CB game. I got my Cobra literally. 2 hours ago I cleaned the garage out and I moved my Cobra out of the toolbox into the LJ. So it's back in the LJ, just not hooked up yet.
Nice.
So, I have all the wires ran and all that. I just took it out for there for a little bit because I parked it and I didn't want someone going, ooh, something to steal. But So educate me a little bit when you got like the ham radios, not the sandwiches, but the radios. You got again, like I said, our Baofeng's a thing. Educate me a little bit because I'm a little out of the loop, and I know everyone, JP Magazine and a few other places do all these reviews and things. Guide me through that a little bit, man. Yeah.
So, I mean, the way I started was CB radio, and that works pretty good. Mm-hmm. The only catch I ever had with that was the kids would stand on the knob and turn the knob, because they got it down out of the way. And so all of a sudden you hear people really scratchy, and it's like, you're right behind me. Stupid kid. Would you watch your feet? Back to 16 instead of listening on 14, It
squelches all the way up now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So they're pretty good, but they're only as good as they are. I mean, you can get half a mile to a mile. In the mountains, yeah, it's pretty bad. So I was actually looking into a off-road recovery group and a nonprofit thing, and one of their big things was we strongly encourage you to get ham radio. And it's funny because I'm never doing that. It's great. Just more money to spend and all this stuff. But then I started looking into ham. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. Okay, fine. I'm going to look into it a little bit. So I ended up buying a little Baofeng UV5R. It's like $30 on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And the thing can do everything. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And it's not everything like, wow, you can talk to the Atlantic Ocean from the Pacific and that kind of stuff. But in terms of short range communication, it's pound for pound as powerful as, your CB that was hardwired into your vehicle. It works pretty much as well as that in the mountains and whatnot. And so you start with CB, and then you graduate to like smoke signals, screaming really loud, telepathy, that sort of thing. And then the next step would be like GMRS. They make basically GMRS radios are like the equivalent to CB, except that they use ultra high frequency. Okay. And so you get that FM sound. It sounds good. You maintain that signal strength a lot better, and flies really flat and all that jazz. So GMRS, it's simplified ham radio, basically, if you're going to get down to the bones of it. Right. You can communicate simplex, which is radio to radio. It works really good for that. Probably at least equal distance with two 5-watt handhelds. If you get a GMRS license, then you can go further than that. I guess we'd probably all use the little blister pack radios from Walmart. Well, GMRS is working on basically the same frequencies. And so, but with a GMRS license, you can go a little bit further and actually like set up a repeater. So it's really weird how that works. I still don't quite fully understand how it can be, but it's pretty amazing when you're using a 5-watt radio that you have a hard time talking to somebody about 2 miles away with simplex, but you can talk to a repeater that's 15 miles away and have that broadcast a 50-watt signal out and repeat your signal, and then everybody can talk for miles and miles and miles. Yeah, it's really awesome. And the neat thing about it too is I don't get much joy out of it, but I can see the catch. And as we get into this, it's kind of like if you think the Jeeps are a money pit, then ham radio is like as big a money pit if you want it to be. Yeah. as Jeep. I mean, it's like it can go as far as you want to let it take you. I mean, it's a pretty neat hobby, really. But or you can buy a boat. So that's like the trifecta. I know there's one guy down in Denver. He's got all three. He's got a CJ3B. He races on the ice. He does GMRS. He's got his ham, and then he also has a boat. He's like, so yeah, I got it all covered. I have no money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so his name is Dr. What?
Yeah, exactly, right. But so going even further with that, you got repeaters. So then you can talk, in an established area, you can talk over a large range.
Right.
Problem is in the mountains, those repeaters, they're line of sight as well. So if you got a mountain in between you, it doesn't pick up as well. And then to flip the coin a little bit, if you got internet connectivity where the repeater is, then there's some folks that'll tie in their GMRS repeaters with like Zello apps and stuff like that. So you can like participate on your cell phone talking to the GMRS radio frequencies and stuff. And that's kind of neat. Ripe for abuse. Sometimes people just shut it off for a little bit to get people to stop messing with them and that sort of stuff. But
yeah.
So, and the other neat thing about GMRS licenses, it's $30. It covers your family. So if you want to talk to your wife over repeaters and stuff and your kids and stuff like that, I've heard like 6-year-olds calling out for their dad on GMRS. It's really cute when it happens.
Aww.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, hey, little 290 was looking for you or whatever. It's just like, oh, that's cute.
Brings back the song Teddy Bear with the trucker song,
Yep.
Oh, that'll bring a tear to your eye.
Oh, yeah. So when I got the Baofeng, the first thing I wanted to figure out was how do you use this thing? I mean, because looking at the face of the display, it's like it's not in Chinese, but it might as well be in Chinese. You can't really understand what it's doing. And the instruction manual, if it comes with one, congratulations, but you can't read it.
Yeah.
So on YouTube, there's this YouTuber, Not a Rubicon, and his channel started with Jeeping videos and stuff like that. But he got into GMRS radio on account of Jeeping, kind of like I did. But he's got viewer discretion advised. He's got a really dark, dry sense of humor.
Okay.
And he really likes picking on sad hams. And it was funny because I actually started into this whole trek into ham radio, and then I took a right turn and also bought a GMRS license, and I was like, okay, great, now I can kind of use everything. So whatever. I took the technician test back in October, just passed my general test a month ago or so. So once again, the rabbit hole deepens. So now I can broadcast on HF frequencies. So with a 100-watt radio that I've got in my side porch here, and I think $100 vertical antenna, depending on propagation, I've talked to people in like North Carolina and Oregon and stuff like that, simplex.
Wow.
And it just gives you this little thrill. And it when you get down to brass tacks, it's like, okay, so far you spent like $600 to talk to old men. It's like, well, I know it sounds weird, but it's fun. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna put a pin in that, because down here in Florida, can Scott have a stream of thought? Down here in Florida during hurricane season, we actually rely on the ham radio operators, because when the cell towers go down, a lot of times these guys have the towers in their house that are pretty stoutly built, and they use the Florida emergency repeater network or something to that effect. I can't remember the exact name of it. I know I have an app on my phone that allows me to listen to the repeater network, but it's very interesting because they weather reports, wind reports, or damage reports, and the EMS, emergency management system, actually uses the ham radio as an auxiliary communications when a hurricane hits, especially when there's massive devastation. So hats off to, again, like you say, I feel like I'm, talking to an old man in Albuquerque, but it's there for a reason. It's actually vital sometimes.
Yeah. Especially and that's the thing is,
especially when the eclipse takes everything out. So.
Exactly. Right. And that's the thing is, you start with, okay, this technology is neat. I want to figure out how to use the technology. I don't want to use it for me selfishly. Right. Mm-hmm. But then you start to meet people in that network, and they're a bunch of cool people. And there's some Jeepers that are mixed in that you hadn't met before. And then there's just other people that are just interesting. The stuff that they know and you can learn from them it's just really neat. And so it's like, okay, so you get to the point where you got a tech license on a ham and you can talk to that repeater, and it's like, well, if you're a jerk and you haven't made any friends or whatever, then you call out on the repeater and nobody's really going to want to visit with you. you know.
Yeah, no.
So it's good to make friends with people and develop human relationships. And it goes so much beyond the technology. It's kind of fun. But and with the emergency stuff, they've got, I don't know, like 3 different levels of ham organizations that deal with that kind of stuff, ARES and weather spotting and stuff like that. And if you're interested, I mean, there's a lot of people that they really get a kick out of the weather, and they love, you know, that's what their thing is. There's a guy, I don't know if he sleeps. You know, he's on the Colorado Severe Network on DMR radio.
Right.
That's another whole rabbit hole. You think, okay, a radio, got it. Baofeng. Well, Baofeng's analog. But you've got DMR radios. You've got D-Star, All-Star, who knows what. I mean, there's like 5 different, the Yaesu fusion stuff and stuff like that. You
Holy
can talk
cow.
digitally to people. Yeah. I mean, it is insane how deep the hole goes when you really start digging and realize, oh, well, that DMR radio that I thought was going to do everything. Well, it does 20%. You know, what else do you want to do? And so that's why you get up with these guys with ham shacks that are like wall-to-wall black boxes doing all kinds of stuff. That's why. Because you oh, well, it doesn't do that one thing. Okay, well, I'll buy something that does, you know. And
You get
so
your
it's like a
antenna
black
farm.
hole. Exactly.
Well, it's like the Pokemon. You got to catch them all. I mean, and that's. But again, like as Jeepers, we have the same thing. Like we have some guys have the farm jack, some guys have the exhaust jack, some guys have the bottle jacks. Each tool has a specific use, very similar to each radio would have a specific use. You know.
Exactly.
So there was a they called it the Porcupine. Had its own Facebook page, but a gentleman down the road was huge into ham. He started off with a Chevy Citation. And it had all the antennas on the roof, and the entire thing looked like Darth Vader's bathroom. I know I keep making that joke, but it looked like Darth Vader's bathroom inside that thing. Every single ham radio just drilled to the dashboard. The car got hit and totaled, so then all of a sudden he got the he called it the Porcupine 2, which was a Prius, and it had like 15 antennas on the roof, all the same equipment, you know. The back area is all done, and it's like, but the dude loved his ham radio, man. His backyard was like an antenna farm. You know, you had this garage door open, like you said, all the black boxes and racks. You're like, holy cow, dude, do you sleep?
Right. Yeah. But it's funny because once you get into it a little bit, you can totally see how deep the hole is. And it's like, well, you can't even see the bottom of the hole, you know? So, yeah, as far as, you see the little memes on Facebook. I mean, if you've ever looked up a radio or something, you're going to start seeing memes on Facebook or your favorite social media platform of, the guy's like 5-watt blister pack from the store, you can reach so far. And then GMRS can reach so far. Ham, you're limited to 1,500 watts and you go around the world. And what's his name, McMahon or whatever, his eyes are all glowing red and all this.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but for practical purposes at a Jeep, in my book, it basically stops. You got 70 centimeter and 2 meter, and that's your typical UHF, VHF radio. Mm-hmm. When you get into HF, that's when you can broadcast across the nation from your location directly to other people. Realistically, the antenna on my roof is 20 feet long. So unless you're doing Morse code, and you learn Morse code and you want to do it that way, you can do a shorter antenna. I've seen guys, one of the people that got me into it was parked down the street, and I saw this antenna sticking up in the air. And what's funny is I pulled him up on APRS. I'm like, oh, that's this guy. And so I went down there and I put my business card in his door and I said, I want to talk to you about ham radio.
Nice.
Yeah. But he gets a lot of fun out of driving down the road, and he can, steering, paying attention to traffic, and he's sitting there doing Morse code on his little clicker going down the road, and he does HF driving, but that's pretty much an outlier. That guy is extremely into it. Right?
I was gonna say he's not dipping his chicken nuggies while eating fries doing that either. Holy cow!
Yeah, right. Exactly. But so the 6 meter, 10 meter, 20 meter, 40 meter, that stuff is more like if you're well into it and you want to visit with people at far distance and do contesting and stuff like that. That's a whole nother bag. But 70 centimeter, 2 meter, which the Baofeng $30 Amazon radio does, it gets you pretty much where you need to be as far as four-wheeling goes. I've got a 50-watt mobile in every vehicle I own because, like everything else I do, it's taken over my life. So,
hey, you know what?
So,
we'll give you a pass.
Yeah, but honest to God, I mean, with the CBs, the first time we went out to Sand Hollow for the event, it was interference and, people crashing in on, you've got some random person with an 11-meter rig with 1,500 watts in North Carolina, and he's blowing you up in Colorado, and just gibberish. I mean, it's like if you feed somebody too much meth or something, and they're just going off, and you can't talk over them,
Yeah.
With the GMRS and that kind of technology, you put in a code, and it's a privacy tone, but it's not really private. Like, everybody can hear what you're saying, but you don't have to listen to anybody else unless they have your code. And that was huge on the trip out there, and on the trip back, we just kept it on what they call a TAC channel. Mm-hmm. And I think I changed channels once because somebody else was on our same frequency. And I was like, okay, take it up one. And so we take it up one, and then we're free of each other and not bothering each other. Nice. And for the first time ever, my wife and I were able to communicate on the entire road trip without any trouble, which was awesome.
That's cool, man. See, that's kind of what it was about. It's a big leap from the old Nextel days. That's
one
of the first times I went to the Keys lobster diving. Between all the cars, we had the Nextels, which was cool. But Dory really wanted to try and find a way where all could chat at one channel, and I said, I don't think Nextels do that. So she spent a good week trying to figure out if you could do that. Of course, you couldn't. But again, it was still kind of fun, though. I mean, again, it's an instant communication thing that I think is really, really cool. And again, you talk about how each one of your vehicles has one of those 50-watt radios. That's actually good in case you lose a cell phone, you forget something, you can still communicate, which is kind of important.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the GMRS repeaters are typically up during power outages. We just had a big outage here for a wind concern. They were worried about it turning into a fire from down power lines and stuff. So they knocked down a whole bunch of power across 2 counties. And the repeaters lost power, but they got battery backup. And so the emails went out saying, hey, if you're using the repeaters, try not to what they call rag chew, just shoot in the breeze.
Right.
Keep it succinct because it's running on batteries. We want it to last as long as it can in case somebody's actually needing help, and it works. And
it's cool.
So as far as ham goes, it's $30, just like a GMRS license. It's only good for one person, whoever takes the test. Okay. There is so much study material online. You can't if you study for it, you're reading the test, Right. There's no, here's a similar question. You're going to see that question on your test. Study it, understand it, or at least know that the answer is what it is. It's not going to be A every time, but but the study is that much. I didn't know a thing about a ham radio to speak of when I took my technician's test, and not enough to really be an honest general, Right. But with the studying, now you get the practice, and it's like, okay, now I understand more about that stuff I was testing about,
Yeah, because you're a kinetic learner like me. You got to do it and read at the same time.
Yeah.
It kind of helps me.
But then the only other thing along those lines that I was going to bring up was just APRS. Basically, APRS is automatic packet reporting system, and it's a ham radio data system where did you click on that link I sent you by chance?
I tried, but it gave me a weird little like a
give you a bad thing.
No, it's
but anyway,
it gave me a map like this. I didn't know what the map was kind of for. Sorry, I don't know if that's coming through. Yeah, so
no worries.
I don't know what the map meant.
Okay, gotcha. So basically, what it is your radio, if you've got APRS on your radio, it can broadcast your telemetry, like you're driving 45 miles an hour, and it gives you a specific GPS coordinate where you're at.
Okay.
And so it's really cool if you go to aprs.fi is the website. You can look up and see all the different things that are on it. And it's not just telemetry for vehicles. It's like weather stations, where's the digipeater located that connects this thing to the internet and all that jazz.
Okay.
So what I sent you is actually just so that my people can keep track of where I am, which is kind of a weird, noble thing to do, I guess. But
well, that's very similar to the iPhone sharing that we have. We can share back and forth. Yeah, I got you. That's what I figured what it was.
Yeah, and so basically, it's always transmitting that, and so you can pull it up by call sign. So if you got a ham license, then you can get a call sign, and then it just, if you like on my phone, basically I turn it on, say beacon my position, because my radio for APRS, I didn't want to spend $1,000 on a radio. I'm trying to keep it as cheap as I can.
Yeah.
So it will, if you tune into the specific frequency and let it sit there and ping, it'll do that. It's like, well, that's dumb. I want to talk to people with radio,
Yeah.
But in an emergency, maybe it might be helpful. It's in there. Doesn't take nothing to program it in.
Yeah. That's kind of cool.
But on the phone, it's just sitting there doing it in a very non-fancy way. It's just an app sitting there updating your location all the time. Gotcha. And it works. It shows up on the same map, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I figured, because it did show that information. I was just like, okay, he's just sharing his location. Like, cool. You know, that gave me a chance to take care, like you get set up all the gear, see where you were and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. No, that's actually a very noble thing. I'm the same way sometimes. When Autumn and like all my little family here, you know, the son, her daughter, and Autumn and myself, we all share each other's locations all the time. So, but yeah, that's kind of cool. You can do it with that. Excuse me, lunch is talking. I had Chipotle, so not too bad. But
would you believe, with all my vast amount of experience, I've never had Chipotle.
Yeah, the Autumn wanted it. She didn't want anything fried. I'm like, all right, let's just go there. You know, I'm trying to stick away from the bread as much as I can. You know, that ain't working. But but again, it was just something. Again, to just it was food. It was fuel. Scarfed it. Came home. Worked in the garage. Here we are. So.
Yep.
Very cool, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate having you on, because we got a whole hour plus long show out of this, man. I really appreciate you having on, man. I know you got things you got to go do and go fight the good fight and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know it's kidney stops and whatnot. So, but George, yeah. I really appreciate everything, man. It's great having you on. And again, as always, we're going to do this again. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm happy to be here and be here as long as you'll have me. So I appreciate it.
Cool, man. Well, we'll catch you on the flip side with that, guys. Remember to email us onthetrailpodcast@gmail.com or send a Facebook Messenger. And I will put down that link for George's YouTube page so you can check it out and give him a like and subscribe. So with that, we will get going, and I'll catch y'all later. Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.